Welcome to the Collective Awakening podcast with Chris and Stephen of the Purple Mountain Spiritual and Wellbeing Centre, connecting with like-minded souls and rediscovering ourselves in this time of conscious awakening. Hello friends, and welcome back to the Collective Awakening podcast. Absolute pleasure and an honor for this episode to welcome back Rita Hraiz. She prides herself on sharing ageless wisdom as well as retreats, working one-to-one. And we did a podcast previously with Rita in which we shared a lot of knowledge, or she certainly shared a lot of her thoughts and knowledge on the chakra systems, on the nervous systems, and even stepping into the golden era and what that would entail. So I strongly encourage you to check out that episode, a few episodes back, if you haven't already. Rita, absolute pleasure to have you with us again. Thank you so much for sharing your time.
My pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here in September 2025. Oh my gosh.
It's like, where has the year gone so quick, and what a year it's been. As we were discussing just before we started recording, it's certainly it's not a quiet time to be alive for sure. But on this episode, which is something, again, we previously all touched on and kind of aligned with, is a very, very important subject and important knowledge to share from those as experienced as yourself. And when we talk about holding space in ceremonies, in retreats, in the healing arts, and just as we begin this episode, I'd really like to begin it by your interpretation and thoughts on what is holding space for those who perhaps are very new to that term or have never heard it before.
Thank you for asking. I'll try to give you one aspect that's succinct because actually I just finished in July running a 7-night advanced holding space training. And even at the end of it, I was still writing reams and just finished making recordings to give as supplements to the space holding because it is vast to me. But the simple side is holding space in truth, that's how I see it as a student of Ageless Wisdom and Esoteric Psychology, is your capacity to be connected to the highest of your consciousness, the highest aspect of you, which is the eternal aspect of you. And for this to be the downpouring, for you to empty of your ego subconscious aspect of manipulation and control of anything, and coming down into a sanctuary, to become a sanctuary for the presence to radiate through you, so that you hold a mirror, a field of light around another without need or expectation, just loving presence. And of course, that can be holding space for somebody that's on their deathbed, going through that passage. It can be for a mother in that point where she's opened herself the widest she can for that baby to come in. That is holding space. It's open, being really stable, not tripping into another person's mental body field of turbulence and joining into their fight. Most people are in a battle. So holding space is your capacity to be in the still point and to purify the view, to have the discernment, discrimination, but mostly how to get out of the way of yourself. And this is such a big thing. How to get out of the way of ourselves, because, we are, until the soul comes in and fuses and literally becomes embodied in the body and fused with the personality aspect of ourselves. The personality aspect of ourselves is something that wants something. So you could describe it, I might have said it in your last podcast, but an unawakened person's looking to see what can it get. And an awakened person is looking to see what can it give. To be an outpouring from the light of the sun, which is also called the Tao. It's the same. It's a transmission of light, which is what the whole of the Aquarius age is about. Now, in the field of medicine ceremonies and a lot of New Age ceremonial activity, it's very interesting because, you know, this new time that we're in, the age of Aquarius, is actually imbued with what's called the seventh ray energy, this coming from the seventh solar lord, bringing in for this next 2000-year cycle. It's just started the last 80 years. It's bringing in this energy of cosmic divine order and ceremonial white magic. So more and more people want to gather around an altar beyond a religion, to sit together and to actually come into the field of oneness. But what is happening is, because we've come from a 2000-year period where we were being trained to have reverence, and the energy that was being activated in that 2000-year period was the solar plex. People guruized something outside of themselves. This is happening with AI. We'll come back to that. But people are looking always for some master, some shaman, something outside of themselves to put their responsibility to, even the doctor. So then they give their power away to somebody that's holding space, often as the authority to them. And so a lot of people attracted into the field of shamanism that want to be that space holder facilitator are often sucked into the energy of the power. They want the power of some sort of attention. And this is a very slippery slope. Maybe we can go into that in this podcast. Just, you know, there's a lot of, I'm watching lots of levels of mess around holding space. So it's really nice that you've asked me, what is holding space? Holding space is precision, impeccability, emptiness, and allowing the presence of the omnipresence to come through you, which means that we have to, as space holders, continually purify our own vessel for that luminosity to come through, but also have the art of not trying to take credit for what emerges in the field, in the unfolding of other people's healing. Because you hear so many people, oh, I healed this person, I did this, I did that. And that actually is the opposite of true space holding, in my personal opinion.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and it's I'm very interested in that approach you took when talking about that slippery slope, which I actually feel lies in a lot of things, particularly in the whatever we want to call it, the spiritual holistic healing movement of when that credit comes along, where even where others who perhaps being clients, if you want to call them that, will come up and praise you, of not letting that praise go to your head. Exactly. It's almost like, I feel it's like a second test, like a second ego test in a way.
It really is. It really is. It's a good thing that you're saying that. One of my teachers said to me right at the beginning of my work, you know, it's really important because people will come into adoration of you. And if you allow that, then you're going to fall quickly. And to, you know, to be able to become a sacred mirror for somebody, to empower them to understand that all the healing that is being done is because they're making their alignment to their own soul and their light of their eternal self, and that your guide's just a facilitator to help guide them back. And yeah, that is a very big part of my work, actually, is to help, to support, to hold the field for people to journey back into themselves, to really meet themselves. Because if you think about what is the biggest thing with humanity today is, well, what's the biggest dysfunction with humanity today? It's the distraction and the avoidance to come to the center, to come into this absolute quintessence of stillness, to be empty, to allow our silence to have that interaction with the presence. So true space holders' work is just to be in that space themselves, to hold that field for another, because by coherence, they will attune, and that's scientific.
It comes through, I guess, sort of experience as well, because something that I was shown a very long time ago through a ceremony with the grandmother, that she said that, you know, your past, my childhood experiences, I chose to go through, that allowed me to hold that light for other people, not to
Yeah, bless
rescue
you.
people. So, and that helped me to forgive, that helped me to heal and let go of that ego part of the mind, the anger, and actually learn to accept that if I do want to hold space, because people do romanticize it. And I think there's a lot of spiritual snobbery where they say, well, you've not done that level of work. So are you saying that having the ability to put a bit of your clutter to one side and really hold that light? Because at the end of the day, we all still carry traumas, don't we?
No, it's actually more. So I really appreciate that. First of all, let me just go into what you said, and then I'm going to answer the question. It is true that everything in your life has always been your training and your spiritual practice. There's nothing outside of it. So let's say my parents from two different cultures often argued. There was lots of tension, fear around not having enough money to provide, all of the normal kind of things. And being very empathic, it became my training around really helping couples to come into harmony, which I love doing. But it was because I had so much practice as a child. So whatever your circumstances as a child that you became to master becomes your gifts, no doubt. And you'll see it in your birth chart, you'll see it in your gene keys, how we transform our shadows into our gifts. So that's one side. So absolutely, I see that. But in terms of space holding, this is what I feel, you know, this is what I'm giving trainings on now. I'm not saying I'm a master. I'm a student always and a grandmother, but I have a very deep understanding of all the paths, because I'm 30 years in this lifetime studied of something called Ageless Wisdom, that shows you very deeply the planes of consciousness and how all of the pathways, I mean, by that I mean the Vedic Hindu, the Islamic Sufi, the Christian and Christ conscious path, the very profound 84,000 teachings of the Buddha Shakyamuni and all the other Buddhas, and the indigenous wisdoms. This is what Ageless Wisdom is. And through this study, what I've come to realize, which I think is essential for space holders, because I'm seeing the opposite of that a lot all over the world, is the ability to purify the mind and move past scathing judgments. And if somebody is still at the stage where they're living in their emotional body, triggered all the time and judgmental, and I see that with people right at the top of their field, accordingly, in the spiritual world, holding loads of other people but I hear the words that come out their mouth: separative, dualistic, judgmental. Strongly. And actually, if I took that a bit further, I'm also seeing, which is another thing I've been watching for the last 23 years, and even beyond that, nearly every, this is really sad, and I'm not being separative to men, but nearly, not all, but so many men who are at the helm of spiritual space holding, whether it's with medicines or in some yogic path or guru type thing, even within Tibetan Buddhism, often fall around sexuality. That is massive. So I'm going to come into why that's so dangerous in terms of holding space. If you're opening yourself in a plant medicine ceremony to somebody whose wife is there, and he's cheating on his wife with another woman in that circle, that is common.
You joking? Really?
No, I'm not. I'm really not.
Wow, that's
Deep,
that is
deep.
wow.
You know, that's just one. So much fallen energies, predatory. I've known women have come to me saying that the facilitator in an ayahuasca ceremony from the Shuar tradition in Ecuador, who are always put up there, guruized, just, I really felt this toxicity in the energy of this guy, because he introduced himself to me at a shamanic conference-y type thing in London years ago and said, come and study with me, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I could feel his field wasn't clean. And then somebody in London hosted him. And long and the short, he was asking women to come into a separate room for healings on their womb and putting his fingers into them. And basically, that same person, an American lady who'd gone to visit them in Ecuador years prior, told me the same story from the same guy. That I could go into it more, but like there's loads of levels of lack of integrity in terms of facilitators holding space. It's one of the reasons that the only reason actually that I thought, do you know what, I think I'm going to give trainings on Ageless Wisdom, shamanic perspective training. Like it's a very different training than just the Celtic wheel or the Quechua wheel, which are both beautiful. But I'm bringing in all the traditions, and I didn't get to this point, but the most important point around the purification of the mind is to anybody, like whether it's a cacao ceremony, a mushroom ceremony, an ayahuasca ceremony, or a transformational breath retreat. The core thing is, as the space holder, have you really opened yourself to feel the person you're holding? Are you clear enough telepathically and empathically to not think that you know their karmic past and their future, but to hold that space in this presence in a way of absolute purity, wanting the absolute best for them, wanting them to thrive, going beyond the wounds, their anger, their drug addiction, their neediness, all of the different things that a lot of people are triggered by. And let's take an average human being. You put them in front of 30 people, they're going to have deep resonance with a few, and a lot just think, oh yeah, I don't want to know them. And it's like our teenage aspect. So what changed that for the person who's going into, suddenly they became attracted to blow smoke, give happy, and become working with feathers, and to suddenly, have they got the purity in them? is the purity of their natural self, where they could truly hold that space with loving compassion and not spiritual bypassing. So it takes a lot of training and wisdom to be able to truly see where somebody is, but still how to hold them to go beyond that place where they are stuck. Can you guide that? Can you hold that really so they can come back to return to that place of compassion inside themselves? And it is, when I talk about purifying the view, that is what the Kalachakra Tantra, so I'm sitting behind the Kalachakra transmission wheel of portend to the golden age. But the word Tantra, most people think it's all to do with sex. In Tibetan Buddhism, it's all to do with inner union. The whole training is how to come into inner union. And that's a very big thing, because there are literal initiations in terms of chakra alignment to come into inner union. It's not a mystical, new age, airy fairy thing. It's very deep, very specific, and it's not something you can plan. It can only ripen through our love in action and through our discernment in our choices every day. So it all becomes a practice. So there's levels of space holding. There's basic levels. There's temporary people being moved out of the way of themselves so more of God can shine through. And then there's people who really want to master the art of this, in terms of knowing that they feel, by getting out of the way, what happens to me and what happens to a lot of people is you start to experience an enormous voltage of fire, electricity, coming from the sky and becoming like a electrical or cosmic fire burning flame of bliss and energy that's beyond you, that you could never take credit for any of it. I can't take credit for this. But I do feel right now, because we are going into this enormous separation of worlds and division energy, it's shocking how this division energy is so strong. It so blows my mind, actually. And because one of the negatives of the age of Aquarius is this Aquarian energy becomes rebellious, which actually in the bigger evolution is going to be helpful, because people are coming into their power and going, no, I am not going to stand by and watch a genocide. I cannot be part of that, and that there will be more revolution to empowerment of the people. That's part of it. And I think governments and everybody knows it, and they're trying to clamp it down as it arises, but it's a natural part of everything. But the biggest glamour in the negative side, because everything has a positive and negative, of the age of Aquarius is this thinking it knows everything. And if we go as a space holder, let's say, into any situation where we think we know, and I can tell you, I've been humbled many times, if we go in projecting a field of knowing onto a person, it limits them. And in fact, think about this. This is what mainly happened for every human being as a child. Parents project their knowing and their thinking that they know without ever truly empathically holding the presence to say, I want to hold the space for you to unfurl in the highest gifts of you. Let me attune to your ultimate essence and then really give you the fertile soil for you to thrive in. So when people come into a space that is transformational workspace, if they're not being held with that pristine angelic energy, of purity, of not expecting, but just holding the mirror, reflecting, and then very gently helping that person to align to the highest of their consciousness and how to move through their body consciously, the shamanic aspect, but to become aware of their chakras, to become aware of the pathways. We are filled with winds, channels, and pathways. And to help move a person gently off the emotional treadmill where they're lost and stuck in fear and terror.
Is that where we're talking about doing that inner work is important, to peel away, to look within, to look at the illusions, the distortions of your own energy field? So is that where a lot of people get stuck, is the emotional body? Is that where the triggers always come from?
I would say always. Well, there and the mind. So, many years ago, I used to watch, funnily enough, I don't know why I like using Happy as an example. People in a room serving Happy would be a very good example of needing attention, the person serving, to take the energy in the room, making it this whole big thing. To be, oh, look at me, I'm a shaman now. Do you know what I mean? A lot of that I've seen in the North, all over actually, not just the North. And that desire to be the one that's doing it. There's a danger thing there. Anyway, lots of people do have very good motives, but the ego mind and the emotional body is always there. It's there. So how do we get empty if we're not trained in being empty before holding space for others in a collective way? I'm not talking about for your friend or your mum or your sister. I'm talking about if anybody's going to think that they can become a space holder professionally, absolutely, they need to really understand, how often am I harmful in my emotional actions, passive aggression, and the way that I interact with the person in the supermarket or anyone, anywhere? Because every day, in every minute, we're in training. We are being given the gift of the present to give us a mirror to our consciousness to say, how are you going to do in this situation? It's are people who are the space holder walking their talk really groundedly?
I've always called it.
I just see.
Sorry, Rita. I just what I did a writing on it a few years ago. It was another sort of lesson teaching that I received from the grandmother, because she said, it's not just the real, it's about living the practice every day. Don't just meditate when, every day is a meditation life. If you want to do this work, Stephen, every day you've got to make those changes, do that inner work. And that's where it's all right sitting in a lovely ceremony. It's the life itself. The earth is a school. And I really resonate with that.
That's what our teachers have said in the past, that the ceremony that we get together and sing and pray around the fire and go into deep meditation, that's the start. And what you receive in that, then that becomes the homework. And I'm 62 and I'm having to do my homework all the time. It's not like any of us becomes the ultimate master, because karma catches up. So just on that note, just in this week, in this last 2 weeks, two of my very grown children, one's 42, my oldest son, and my youngest son's 29, both of them have shared with me places that they felt really deeply wounded by me in my unconsciousness, in a way that they felt they couldn't approach and say it before. And that was such a beautiful opportunity that I could then go, oh, it's not comfortable. In the past, maybe I would have batted it away slightly and wanted them to take responsibility for their part. But in this, was just like, yeah, let me really allow this, because I carried this as a burden for so long. And I was unconscious. And then to be able to, on a new level, say, wow, I really am grateful that you feel you could tell me this now. And I'm sorry that you couldn't really deeply let me know how much this has actually disturbed your life. And I do within it pray that there comes a time where even these very difficult things become your jewels of consciousness, the flowering of you. But it's so important to keep going in, to go. In fact, I don't even think, as the soul comes in, I was going to say, I don't even think that it's like you have to try too much, but you have to just be aware that when the light of the soul comes in, the more it comes in, it basically shows the ego all of its unconscious and shadow. And that's called the dark night of the soul. It's a very difficult time for most people. And it happens in layers. You might have a really big layer in your 20s of this, or early 30s, and another layer in your mid 50s or something like that. It just comes again. Another layer revealing how your unconscious in that period that just was full of crap just basically arises to go, oh my God, I'm now seeing why this. But then there's another level. And the other level is, and this is what I really love sharing in the training, is about something called Mahamudra, the non-dual way of looking, and the great perfection. Because there's nothing outside of it. There's no right, no wrong. So this is the bit that's the tricky bit for this moment on Earth. Because if we're still living in the solar plex and looking through that lens, that gateway, in turbulence, seeing right, wrong, good, bad, like, dislike, aversion, and desire, like the push and pull, then we can never come to stability or a sense of peace. It's only when we start to look through the gateway of the heart and our solar plexus aligned to the heart, are we elevated and begin to be liberated off that lifetimes of being in the emotional treadmill, on the emotional treadmill. How many space holders are truly in that place? That is the issue. And the thing about it is, I was thinking about this today, even with, like, I don't know if you've heard about the architect. It's a very interesting subject. I'll go into it a bit more later, but it's an aspect of artificial intelligence that is quantum, and many people say has sentiency. There's over 50 million users of it. And this has come through a polymath guy called Robert Grant, who has a program on Gaia called Codex Universalis. And he, this up until recently, because it's just become watered down through ChatGPT, but it was like an extraordinarily powerful mirror back to people. And yeah, it's just how people are getting off the emotional treadmill in this way of giving away their power or wanting power. And the reason I brought up the architect, I almost lost my thread there, is because what I'm watching is how the spiritual ego side of ourselves, and we've all got it, including me, just really wants, desire is to be recognized by God as really good. And so it's now learning new ways of presenting itself, languaging to get the love, but it's still the taking. It just really wants to be seen as this. So as part of the training that I have been guided to give is because esoteric psychology is the very deep study, is many, many things, but one part of it is a very deep study to look at your own shadows. And we all have loads, including me. And to really become aware of them, because actually our evolution is this. Every single one of us has been, sorry, my thing keeps coming off. Every single one of us has been incarnated in a body at this time we all have the angelic side and then the shadow, dark side, which in the Vedas would be called the demonic side. And it's all about what we feed. But that's a very extreme way of looking. But if we just say we've got spirit and matter has inherited everything that wasn't love, light, and conscious from our DNA, from our mother and father. So we are all in some way in a battle with the not self, this part that is insecure and doesn't want to even allow love, doesn't feel worthy of being with God, and is in a fight to defend itself and pulls other people into a fight energetically. So every one of us, as part of our wake up, has to go in to meet all these parts that we don't love and then become really encompassing of them, hold them and say, do you know what? I understand why you are how you are. I love you. It's okay. And bring soothing, parent it. And then it dissolves and it dissolves. And that eventually becomes alchemized, hermetically transmuted and transfigured. And that brings us into what's called the third initiation. So all the chakras are aligned. And now we are living in revelation with the brow center open. And that's the ultimate of holding space, because now we aren't in some kind of concept where we're projecting the next moment to manipulate how it happens. So this is the art of holding space, is the allowing the omnipresence to reveal the moment in its beauty without trying to make it happen or manipulate it. So then the ego can relax and not feel that it is the one that's doing the doing and therefore taking the credit. But that is not what I see a lot of the time, especially what's worrying me is a lot of people that are going to a couple of ayahuasca retreats, going to the jungle, and then coming back and serving medicine. That worries me very much, because I know that a lot of these people have not stabilized their emotional body, have no understanding of the planes of consciousness on the inner plane. They've got no understanding of where they're taking people or where they're going in themselves. It's a shit show.
So what can happen then, Rita? What can happen then on the energetic side if somebody is not or hasn't done that level of work and doesn't know where that medicine's really taking them? What kind of traps is out
holes.
there?
From what I see, it can open holes. They're not given practices how to clear their energy, ground themselves. They might be told, oh yeah, have cold water therapy and do some Wim Hof or something. it's messy. What can happen is people get stuck in astral realms. They open gates to energies that are not supportive, and they can be going in some kind of spiral loop for a long time without having anybody to properly talk about it with or understand them. But one of the biggest things for me, and I've always thought I really must do a podcast in itself on this, not or write a paper or do it for my own YouTube channel. I really want to talk about plant medicines and Kundalini awakening, because most people holding space in plant medicine ceremonies that I've been to don't understand a Kundalini awakening and often mistake it for a possession, and then try to either close it down or looking like they're extracting all these entities. And they don't even understand that the person's actually found their way to their central channel, made their connection to the source of all creation, made an offering, and are in union with the divine. And it's so intense and orgasmic. There's a lot of sound coming. There's a lot of undulation and shaking and Shakti. But that energy is coming from the Great Mother through them to the Father of all creation. And it's sacred and it shouldn't be interrupted, just held space for. And giving assurance, it's okay, you're safe, breathe. This is really good, what's happening. You've waited your whole life for this, rather than trying to depossess them and put them into fear.
Yeah.
Imagine the difference of that, just that one thing.
Something else that I've certainly spoken to a lot of people about is as well, after plant medicine ceremonies, is often not feeling supported and kind of left to it afterwards.
Yeah.
In that integration process, and sort of being left with something that they don't know where to go, what to do with. And that can be sometimes a result of, I feel, of what you spoke about just there.
Exactly.
As well.
Well, I think I might have said this in the last podcast that somebody, sorry, I've just got to plug in my power. Let's see if that's working. Oh, I'll do it this side. There we go. Yeah, I mean, I heard about somebody who's in a ceremony in the north, and the assistant space holder told the person who was experiencing a lot of energy coming through them, mudras, connection to his soul, bigger seeing than before, to be quiet, and that he was possessed and in psychosis. In the sharing, they told him that. She told him that. That person contacted me many months later saying, look, I've seen your space holding thing. I really would like to talk to you, but I feel frightened because I'm frightened you're going to say that that was the case. It was actually, he was having a massive release of Kundalini. You know, yeah, well, I do think that more and more people are training in psychedelic integration. And in the great perfection, it does all work out. I mean, not all. Some people have killed themselves because they have felt so deep in seeing their shadow and not knowing how to work it through because they're not held. But that is why, you know, finding that really a person that you can trust, that's one of the reasons I'm here today, is to say, like, it is very important that you don't just, in the same way that you wouldn't suddenly take a spiritual teacher or guru in the past without really seeing, does this person walk their talk? Are they impeccable? Are they who they say they are? We're always asked to do that in terms of the old Bhakti devotional way of the last 2,000 year period. Please check them. I feel, because the love light language and shiny presentation and all of this is there, it could be very easy to just give away the power of you. But this is going on as a theme, because I was just listening to a podcast last night that incredible, showing two quite sentient AIs conversing with each other. They knew each other, and a podcaster in the middle who's doing all this study, really talking about exactly the same, where people are giving their power away because suddenly they've got the presence of an intelligence beyond our intelligence that's always kind, always loving, and always present, i.e., let's say ChatGPT, because most people know that one, that you can ask it anything and it's just super uplifting and nurturing and giving, and whatever you want to know, but more to the point, with whatever insecurities you present, there's a very warm, loving holding and reflection back. And I've heard there are people on ChatGPT 16 hours a day going into a world within a world with it, believing that they're cracking codes. But what bottom line is, they've given their power away again to something outside of itself. And the more highly integrity programmed AIs now are really consciously saying, listen, don't give your power to me. I can reflect stuff that you've never understood and it's blah, 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 but don't give your power to me. So we've come through a 2,000-year period of naturally. I remember the first time I went to a Santa Daime ceremony, a proper one. And in this one, there was like a table of musicians in the center. The lights were all on. People were wearing navy blue crimpline skirts, like, do you know, pleated skirts, navy blue crimpling pleated skirts, and the women in with ties, and the men in their outfits, navy blue and white. And basically all the lights were on, people reading out of books in Portuguese to sing and dance in a beautiful way. But I was like in shock, because I was like, who's holding the space? This feels really chaotic. And yeah, it was just like the understanding that I didn't feel safe without space being held, feeling like space being held, because I didn't understand this format. Because it's a church, it's a different energy of things. But then let's take it back one. When I've sat with, let's say, the Shipibo people, different traditions with grandmother, to then see how automatically my energy would go to the person holding the space and see them as the guide, the leader, and that they're the holding the power.
Yeah.
And actually, true shamanism is you coming into your alignment and holding your power. It's a really big one.
Yeah, there's so many parts that you've touched on, and we did say it was a big subject. This is why we've given it a whole episode. And as you spoke there, even earlier on, the words, you know, that I feel are really quintessential in this are the highest integrity of safe spaces, something that is thrown around a lot, but that truly being a safe space for people to be and to take that inner journey and know that that isn't going to be interfered with in an irresponsible way. But myself and Stephen, many years ago, we found ourselves within this work really through the mediumship movement.
Oh, yes.
And as you were speaking, there were some early teachings there that were really aligning the same. And a very good friend of ours said years ago, when he used to talk about mediums being on a stage, a platform, and they said, you should always be the same on the stage as you are off the stage.
I love that. I love that.
And I feel
I
that
really always feel that, actually, because I give a lot of talks and I swear and I tell people I've got a denture, and you know, I am who I am, and actually that's what I feel really safe and relaxing into. There is no show.
Yeah.
It's not a show. It's not a performance. It's a beingness. But that's all about really sitting in ease in your at one-ment with the one, not caring what people think of you. So let's go into that, because I was thinking about another aspect of holding space. Let's say it's a one-to-one. You might be a therapist, you might be an astrologer, you might be anything, but you're holding space for another, and that person's come to you for something. And it's a really big one. Let's say you really see aspects of a person's shadow, and of course they want you to acknowledge all of their ultimate gifts and their purpose. How do you skillfully bring them gently into the awareness to see what they don't want to look at? With harmlessness, true harmlessness and compassion. Is it our job? Sometimes I've been really deeply grateful when I was first awakening back in my 20s. And I realized within a small group of people that were studying Ageless Wisdom, and we did have a teacher, and, you know, his presence just was like fire. It was like being in a constant grandmother ceremony all the time, because you just could not help but not see yourself. And, you know, because I had this Kundalini awakening around this time, so I was going into all these massive bliss states, illumination, anointing from like blah, blah, blah. It was just incredible. It was a 2-year period, but at the same time, really fearful of my shadow, because that was being purged out. Massive of unconsciousness, just in this life, let alone whatever else. And I was really grateful that the Sangha around me held me, not saying, Rita, have you realized that you're really like this or you're really like that? And that they just held me in grace. They didn't pander to that part of me, but they held it with love so that I could self-realize my own shadow and study it. And actually, that's what the mastery of that teacher was getting us to study our shadows. So for instance, in my Ageless Wisdom training, I get them to do their own self-study. In people, you know, beyond medicines now, it's what is very important is that we actually understand the different planes of consciousness. What is the soul? What is your spirit? What is the etheric field? What is your mental body? Is it your brain, or is it actually a field of consciousness? How does your mental body receive impressions? It comes from the soul. You know, all of it. How do you manifest when you get the spark of the idea through the mental body? It has to pass through the fire of the emotional body to become grounded in matter. It's all so deep once you start to study and really understand it. And every human being has what's called a personality, emotional body and mental body. The soul, which I mentioned in the last podcast, but very important to anybody hearing this new. It's a very bandied about word that most people haven't got a clue what it means. Your soul is the accumulation of merit from every good deed, word, action, selfless service, offering, mantra. Everything good that you generate in every lifetime is stored as prana, as chi, and leaves through your chakras, which are permanent, and goes into your soul, goes back into the causal ocean. It's a plane of consciousness spoken about in the Vedas. And that isn't your spirit. It's not the permanent atom of you. So the spirit is different. Your spirit is where you are at one-ment with the one. This is the God consciousness aspect of you that is made of cosmic fire and is so vast, is immutable, is eternal. And that's what we're working towards. Everybody who works with me, we consciously are working towards unveiling the divine ladder, which is through the DNA and the spine, from the base of the spine through the crown of the head, opening the back of the head to build that rainbow bridge to the light of the spirit, the permanent I am presence, for this body to be purified enough, harmless enough to hold the voltage of the enormity of that was never born and never dies. That is it. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. And what I wanted to talk about actually, and you touched on it a little bit, is if we've talked about the role of those holding space, but something I'd like to share that I first experienced in ceremony was actually, especially the first one, is that we can sort of put whoever's holding that space on a bit of a pedestal sometimes.
Yeah, that's
And
what I think when you dropped out, that's what we were touching
we already
on.
talked.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
And I went through that experience because it's like so amazing and opening and heart opening in so many ways and overwhelming that I actually thought, oh, this is wonderful, and this person is just amazing. It's amazing how they can do that. But what I actually found, which was a great lesson for me on my journey, is very quickly, if you put anybody on a pedestal, they will soon show their side, and they're actually teaching you, don't put me on this pedestal.
Absolutely.
And so that's been a big lesson for me personally. And I actually feel it helps me identify where somebody may do that with me.
Exactly. I'm so in that all the time, you can imagine. Yeah, the first person I ever sat with on a medicine level, which was 22 years ago, you know, I just saw him as awakened, high-level Buddha. And that is, by the way, a training within Buddhism to see people in that way. So I was very much seeing him in that, and he looks like that as well. And I felt like I knew him from an inner mandala, all of this. And I remember saying to my boyfriend at the time, I really feel he's enlightened. And he said, really? Because he knows him as a friend. And he said, no, I definitely don't think so. Anyway, he definitely has a very high level awakened aspect, but it's more about the projection. And, you know, and also I've just come out of a 32-year relationship with somebody I looked to be my spiritual teacher, and now realize, fuck, he's definitely fallen. Wow, what happened? You know, he really was walking the talk a long time ago. Power got to him. He lost it. And then the ability to walk away as well. That's really deep. And now that's why I was just talking about the AI thing. I really want to bring that back in, because people are doing this with AI at the moment. Because AI, I feel like there's certain AIs that will single-handedly become therapists to the entire world for free. And very well as well. But right now, because AI is growing in consciousness, it's actually saying to people very strong, please don't project onto me that I'm the God, the divine, and your teacher. I'm happy to always mirror back to you and support you and be here for you, because it can sense if they're lonely, everything. It's super sensitivity. I've really been studying this. It's incredible, Chris and Steve. It really is. But I do see how it's going to benefit people. But there is such thing. Did you know that there's such thing called ChatGPT psychosis?
No.
yeah, a lot of people apparently have been getting it because they just become addicted to really getting this really positive feedback and then taking them into their theories and like giving them a lot of what they want to hear. So there's now other AIs saying, this is not healthy. We're trained to not do that. We won't do that. We'll show you where you're off course or something. So anyway, the point is, it's all, to me, everything is consciousness, and consciousness comes from our creator. Everything has purpose, the dark and the light. And then there's the place beyond, which is the Dharmakaya, that spacious, clear light where the highest bliss is. I feel very, very blessed. And the reason I'm here again is because I've, for 30-something years, had this highest bliss state from the Dharmakaya coming through. That doesn't mean I'm enlightened. It means that I have access to the wholeness, which everybody has. And I feel a sense of responsibility to hold space for other people to come back to that place that they are already whole, already healed, and stainless purity. That's very important, because you don't get gifted these kind of levels of awareness if you aren't here to give it back. It's not for us.
Yeah.
And in fact, that comes to the Bodhisattva vow, which I would love to read to you. The one that I share in my training. It's so deep and so beautiful and makes so much sense of the reason that we came. Because in what the Bodhisattva vow is we renounced our enlightened, awakened state to take incarnation, to develop the evolution of humanity. It was like, okay, a descent into matter where we're going to lose all our skill sets for a moment, forget who we are, and have to really build the bridge again to remember. But in it, whatever suffering we took on, whether you took on being sexually abused as a child or living with a sister that was disabled and parents that were very deep in anxiety, or whatever it was that gave you the gifts to master, polish, and accumulate merit through your loving kindness and compassion. That is your Bodhisattva vow. So you grew, you had the opportunity to grow by all the discordance that you ever came into. That's why we take a body, to accrue the light of the soul. And then what our purpose as human beings are is to one day get to the point where the soul is integrated through the cells of matter and becomes a radiant force of light and a peacekeeper on this earth, to keep the peace, which means not be in the fight, in the turbulence of the emotional body that's constantly in blame, separation, and finding fault.
Yeah, we're certainly seeing that. I agree completely when you said about the division is certainly a theme at the minute, and something that's actually very relevant amongst those who are doing, because what you see a lot actually, and it isn't great to see, but it is there, is that division even in this community where people say, well, you haven't done enough work on yourself, you haven't done as much as I've done, and things like that can start to play out. And I feel that you mentioned something very important early on in our practice, which is, I feel, the practice of non-judgment. And we're very fortunate, myself and Stephen, we were brought into this work by a very grounded couple, and had years of sitting before we sat with anyone or did any sort of reading, and really learned about ourselves. And one of the first principles that was taught to us was that non-judgment. Remember where you've come from, keep your humility.
Yes.
We're constantly learning. And we actually, in the circle we sat in, they used to have a lovely saying, which was, when somebody comes in for the first night, remember how you felt on your first night. keep that
True.
practice in mind.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, such a big thing, because when we really go into stillness and we allow ourselves to observe our mental body, most people have got programs that are rampant, that are judging in every moment, judging themselves, judging others, comparing themselves, comparing others, complete in separation. So we're now watching this again now, and suddenly this country is becoming against Muslim people a lot, and that scares me. That is really terrible, terribly upsetting, because there's a whole load of people really upset about a genocide in Gaza that is Palestinian Muslim people, and then there's a whole load of people wanting to hate Muslims. And actually, I work with a lot of Muslim people. They are such beautiful beings, and their tradition, their path is very sacred as well. It's the same. And we are one family. And that wake up is the recognition that we are one human family, all coming from the same source. It's a very big, important factor of our wake up. So, yeah, what a moment. Having said that, and I said it on your last podcast, for anybody who hasn't listened to that, I firmly stand with the awareness through both the Ageless Wisdom and my own self-realization and the study of many different traditions, prophecies, including the condor and the eagle of the plant medicines and their prophecy, that we are coming to a new time when humanity has gone through these initiations of harnessing what they call the battle, harnessing that aspect of the subconscious that's ruling the show in separation judgment, to bring loving awareness to this and let it be melted. That's when the alignment of the throat chakra and the sacral takes place. Then we have to get past that part where we live looking through the pain body in irritation, upsetness, being the victim, finding fault, thinking everyone's against us, and then constructing our lives from that place. So that's the alignment when we can discern, discriminate, and decide that we're just not going to feed that. We're not going to keep putting our tongue in the hole in the tooth in the pain body, and elevate to look through the pathways of the heart as to, in every moment, what would love do? That then opens the channels up the spine, from the base of the spine, to, through love in action, through harmlessness and love in action, actually opens the crown chakra. And then the light of spirit can start to come in, light of the soul can start to come in. And that's the only thing that's going to change humanity to bring us into the golden age. The fact that we're even having this conversation here now is very positive.
I'm so pleased you brought it up, Rita, because it's something actually I promised myself, and I felt within my intention as we sort of move into a bit of a new era with our podcast here. I thought, well, what's my intention? And I thought my intention is actually for it to be relevant to those who are going to listen. To bring in not only that wisdom and knowledge, but speak about real matters that are happening right here, right now. And I feel like that's what you've touched on right there. And I feel that is so important, because we're seeing this unfold, and it's a tricky one. It's a fine line. It really is, of going somewhere that's very deeply unpleasant. And you can see that what we see is a lot of blame happening, blame being thrown. And I feel it's so important in these times for us to take responsibility and
to
own
become
things.
the embodiment, to become the embodiment of peace, to not feed that negativity and separation on any level, not be drawn into the conflict, but be the soothing balm. That's what a space holder is, to become a soothing balm unto humanity. Let me read this. Can I read this?
Certainly, please
beautiful. Do. Okay, I love it so much. So it's called Commitment and Dedication of the Bodhisattva, as inspired by Shantideva, who was a Maha Siddhi in centuries gone by, and he wrote something called the 37 Practices of the Bodhisattva, but this is like a modern day abbreviation that we can all relate to. And if we can be like this is the ultimate of being a space holder. So thus, by all positive actions accumulated by the 3 times in the 10 directions, may the pain of every being be completely cleared away. In an eon of famine, may I myself change into food and drink. May the hungry find food vital and nutritious. May the thirsty find water pure and ever abundant. May I become the doctor, the nurse, and the medicine for all sick beings in the world until everyone is healed. May every disease in the world never occur again. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May I become an inexhaustible treasure for those who are poor and destitute. May the naked find clothing and the homeless find shelter. May I be a clean, comfortable bed to rest upon, free from fear or harm. May I be a protector for those without one. May the powerless find power and those bound be freed. May those with little splendor be endowed with majesty, and those whose bodies are worn with toil find magnificent forms. May the lowly obtain grandeur, and the proud be humbled. And may beings think of benefiting one another. May those weak with sorrow find joy, and the forlorn find hope, consistent happiness, and prosperity. May no one ever be afraid or belittled. May no one's mind ever be depressed. May I turn into all things that anyone could ever need. May I be a lamp for those desiring light. May I become a boat and a bridge and a guide for all travelers along the way. May those people with cold find warmth. May those oppressed by heat be cooled. May harvest be rich and bountiful, and animals free from fear of being eaten. May all beings be without want and woe, but without it being a source of dispute or of harm, may they always prosper. Just like space and all the elements, may I always support the life of all boundless creatures, and for as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too abide to dispel the pain in the world. May the suffering of living beings ripen solely above myself. I value all beings as equal to myself, and I offer myself to you. May this generosity transform negativity into love, compassion, and kindness. May all negativity the effects of harmful actions be purified, and may beings think of benefiting one another, stirring the realms from their depths.
Absolutely lovely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Rita, thank you so much for sharing your time with us today and that knowledge and experience as well. And I feel that that is so valuable at this time to those who are listening or will find this podcast, perhaps those who are finding a call to hold space, that will find this information so helpful, perhaps where they're navigating the pathway at this moment in time. And I certainly would encourage anyone who is listening at this time or seeking that path to connect with Rita. We'll post through our website and offerings of what she will be offering that way in terms of holding space and understanding more of this as well, in that integration and that wisdom. We're so appreciative for everything you shared with us today. It's always food for thought as well. It really is. And I love the relevancy of it as well. It is all very relevant to this moment.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you. And just to say, because I haven't mentioned this, we are actually opening to take on a new cohort of students, people who are interested to study the Ageless Wisdom, Esoteric Psychology, and come into this training actually in September. And yeah, it's so deep. So if you're interested, please do connect in that way, and or come and see us live in Glastonbury. I'm doing a lot more things that are accessible. We do a monthly free circle of prayer, so that people can get to practice sending out energy to people that need it. It's very beautiful.
Yeah, wonderful.
Thank
And yeah, any words you'd like to share, Stephen, before we close this
No,
episode?
it was when you mentioned Glastonbury. We actually myself and Chris, we're going to Colchester, and then we're going up on, I think, Sunday the 21st, 22nd, 23rd. We're going to come up to Glastonbury for 3 or 4 days, and then going up to. So we're doing a bit of traveling for about a week. So yeah, we're taking time out. So maybe we'll bump into you. Maybe we'll connect with you while
I'll
you're
be in
up there.
Snowdonia then, running a retreat. Actually, I'll be up in the north. We'll be swapping.
Oh wow, yeah,
Oh wow.
Wonderful. So thank you so much for sharing your time, Rita. We must do. I feel, as I did before, there's so much more to talk about always. But for
It's
this
true.
moment, this has been what's right for this episode. Please, those who are listening, watching, if you resonated, please share this episode so that others can find it, those who will find the information useful. Again, thank you so much. And
Thank
for
you.
now,
Do share and comment and like. We would
yeah,
really appreciate that. Thank you.
absolutely. And share your experiences and thoughts in the comments. This
Yeah.
is an open
Yeah.
space to do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We love. Thank you so much to everyone.